Hey everyone. Okay, so as you've seen in the title, this is Pallas Athene, or Pallas Athena, is going into Scorpio. This video was absolutely inspired by the beautifully and wonderfully intelligent and talented and knowledgeable women and astrologers named Anastasia, the cosmic astrologer. If you're unaware of her, she's absolutely wonderful, and I actually have her on my main page under the Formidable Fellows. Okay, but so Pallas Athene is going into Scorpio. Okay, she looks like Venus in the chart, and I'll put a little link below where you can find where yours is. But instead of a circle as a head with the plus, it's a diamond. Okay, which in essence sort of represents her. It's kind of like a spear. But she's going to Scorpio, which technically will relate to wherever Scorpio is in your chart. Whether, I would presume, the planets that are associated with Scorpio, which are Pluto and Mars. Also, what house is ruled by Scorpio, okay? And we're going to do it by house, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But before we get started, I actually found this book before I knew about, I started reading tarot in a way. This book came first, which is by Julia Sherman Burke and Liz Green. They're really beautiful tarot cards also. But this is based off of the Greek stories, and I'd just like to read you a bit if you have the time and the patience. Just a sec. Oh, it's right there. Which in this deck is ruled by justice, and it's suiting, okay? So here we go. Here we meet Athene, goddess of justice. In the myth, her father was Zeus, the king of the gods, who had been warned by Uranus that if he had a child by his first wife Metis, and excuse me if I mispronounce the Greek names, Metis, the goddess of wisdom, it would be more powerful than he. To forestall this, eventually he swallowed Metis before she had given birth to the child she was carrying. Shortly afterwards, Zeus was tormented by an intolerable headache. To cure him... Oh, fuck, these names are hard. Hephaestus, the smith god, split open his head with a bronze axe, and from the gaping wound sprang the fully armed Athene, shouting a triumphant cry of victory. At the sight, all the immortals were struck with astonishment and filled with awe. The goddess became Zeus's favorite child, and his preference for her was so marked that it aroused jealousy from the other gods. Athene's warlike proclivities were immediately apparent from her birth, but she was different from Eris, the war god, in many ways. The arts of war which Athene cultivated were not based on love of conflict and bloodshed. Rather, they sprang from high principles and the cool recognition of the necessity of battle to uphold and preserve the truth. She was a strategist rather than a brute fighter. She balanced Eris's physical aggression and force with logic, diplomacy, and cleverness. She protected the brave and the valorous and became the guardian of many heroes. But the protection she offered to Perseus, Odysseus, and other famous warriors always consisted of weapons which had to be used with intelligence, foresight, and planning. Athene was a striking exception to the Olympian society because of her chastity. She also rendered valuable service to mankind. She taught the art of taming horses, and fostered skills and crafts such as weaving and embroidery. Her activities were concerned not only with useful work, but also with artistic creation as well. Thus she was a civilizing goddess, although a warrior when it became necessary to protect the peaceful civilization she nurtured. On an inner level, Athene, goddess of justice, is an image of the uniquely human faculty of reflective judgment and rational thought. To the Greeks, this faculty was divine because it differentiated man from the beasts. Thus they envisioned Athene born from the head of great Zeus, uncontaminated by corporeal mother, who might link her with the physical and instinctual world which we share with the animals. Athene's judgments are not based on personal feeling, but upon impartial objective assessment of all the factors contained in a situation, and on ethical principles which stand as firm guidelines for choice. Sounds very Scorpionic to me. Athene's chastity may be taken as a symbol of intactness and purity of this reflective faculty, which is not influenced by personal desire. Her teaching of the civilizing arts also reflects the capacity of the mind to hold untamed nature in check and transform it through clarity and objective planning. Her willingness to battle for principles rather than passions springs from the mind's capacity to make choices based upon reflection, holding the instincts in control. This card of Athene is the first of the 4 cards in the major arcana, which were traditionally called the 4 moral lessons. These cards are Justice, which is Athene, Temperance, Strength, and the Hermit. All are concerned with the development of those individual faculties necessary for us to function effectively in life. They all contribute to what psychology calls the formation of the ego, which means the sense of I that each of us must have in order to experience a self of worth and value in this life and to cope with life's challenges from a stable and truly individual base. It says, justice is not possible unless we respect fairness and truth as important ethical principles rather than as nice behavior which we adopt because we want to be liked by others. Athene raises us above nature and represents our striving towards a perfection conceived by the human mind and spirit. Deep, right? So, basically I'm breaking this down, although it will be, again, wherever you have Scorpio in your chart, is what will bring this kind of clarity, okay? And again, Anastasia has a beautiful video about it if you'd like to research more. She's very welcoming, natural energy about her, easy to learn, okay? So, I'm working this out. I've been inspired to do it by house, but we're also going to do, first house is also, if you happen to have it in Aries, it could give you some sort of indication. Or let's give an example. Say you have Pallas Athene in Leo, in the first house of self, right? But your Scorpio is, say, in your 4th house of home. How does that interplay, right? So I'm sure there will be some puzzle pieces that you can put together however you are able and desire. And I will say that before we begin this, it's important to find yourself comfortable and in a place where you are comfortable enough to ask, to be open and receptive to these messages, okay? Don't do it in your car over, on your lunch break. Like, take some actual personal time to be able to absorb what's happening here, okay? Okay. Athene in the first house, or in Aries. What does she want to say? Well, firstly, I saw you trying to beat yourself up for something. You looked at the negative first. Okay, you look at the negative first. Even if you don't say it, it's like unconscious, your mind, right? Scorpio, subconscious. And subconsciously, you look at things negatively. Now, I don't know if I mentioned, but Pallas Athene is sharp, right? So these messages may be very clear pointing. We also have Hermit on the bottom with the Magician, communication right underneath, okay? So, but once you recognize that, right? A bit more of this subconscious, a bit more of what you've been carrying around emotionally and energetically for most of you since you were about 10 years old, or for a lot of you, for some of you since you were 10. For most of you, the last 10 years, you've been working on it. But you're not finished yet. Because you know you have to clean it up. Right? And you also know that the world is frivolous. Right? That in a lot of ways we live in this sort of throwaway society. And that's a hassle. Right? So I heard make a good example for what you find important. Okay? What you put your energy towards, what you struggle for, what you strive for. And I also see cleaning it up. You know what I mean? This could be obviously inside of yourself. I see specifically emotionally and energetically. A lot of you could attach to your father or to family obligations is where it all came from. Family connections. But it's also worldly connections. You know what I mean? It's like, because you're the beginning. You start everything. So you, instead of starting at 1 and going to 2 to 3 to 4, you can't start, you try to start at 10, right? And it's too much, okay? You need to backtrack it and figure out how to ask for help, Aries. Because I heard you're too friggin' stubborn with certain things, right? Some things do all by yourself. Aries, of course, first house, yes, whatever. But really, I also see kind of calling out people. You see somebody like throwing trash on the ground, right? Or there's like a water source by you and you're walking on the path and like there's trash there. Pick it up. I know it's not technically your responsibility because you didn't do it, but there's something about that, right? Because if everybody picked up and cleaned up themselves, well, where they are, right? Their personal bubble. Right? Because you can't fix the whole world, but you can fix wherever you are on this earth in your own personal bubble, right? Wherever you are. You pick up trash there. You treat people nicely there. You aren't frivolous there, right? You know how to deal with the energy in that space, right? And wherever it is that you go, you do the best that you can. That's how the world fixes its problems. Particularly like, say, pollution or, what's appropriate and what's not. Fixing kind of the frivolous world that we live in a kind of way. So I also see living simply is something that you need to, because when you, Pallas Athene, 1st house, Aries, whatever, try to, 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 try to well, I know that things don't actually make you happy, right? And I know that because Pallas is in your first house, that you will do it, right? That you have this energy and this emphasis and this like drive to be like, I'll fucking do it. Like, if I have to do it, if I have to do it all by myself, I will. But that's part of your problem. Okay, you have to figure out, you can't just one-side it, right? Libra, your opposite, 7th house. You got to figure out how to be a little bit more efficient about something. Go Pallas Athene. I like her. Awesome. And I do see that whatever it is that you're healing, particularly emotionally, like something that's yucky or something, because remember it's Scorpio, so it's like what's under the ground, right? But it's in your first house of self. So really what's in there, right? I also see keeping your house clean, keeping things decluttered, right? We've talked about this before, Aries, actually, the things in the corners of your houses, right? The things in the corners of your mind, the things in the corners of your heart. You have to pay attention to that. You have to constantly clean those things, or what happens? It gets a bunch of spider webs, which is ruled by Scorpio. Fucking right. Cool. All right, this is going to be long. I hope you don't mind. Somebody put timestamps. So, okay, thank you. Thank you. Pallas Athene in, let's see, we'll do 1630. Pallas Athene in the 2nd house or in Taurus. I know you got kicked out of the tribe. Okay? I know you got kicked out of the tribe. I know that family has been a challenging thing for you. Right? There's a whole bunch of emotions wrapped up in that. Right? And sometimes you feel like a lone wolf. Sometimes you feel I just heard a song, but I can't hear it. Sometimes you just feel like a lone wolf, you know, abandoned even. But the wolf has to leave the pack eventually, right? Your original, where you come from, pack. You have to go out and start your own pack. And in truth, I guess we have to do that a couple times, usually through life, right? These lines on your hands here will kind of show you how many times you've actually had to do that. Significantly, right? And I want you to be proud of those marks. I heard proud of those scars. I want you to be proud of where it is that you came from, even the parts that were projected to the outside world in some kind of way as dishonest. And I want you to sit on that and feel that out. I see for most of you, you have to, well, it's important for everybody, but I see that there's a particular sibling that's an issue, okay? Significant issue. I actually see 3 kids here. 4 kids. Point is that you need to know your own strength. Okay? You need to know how capable you are. You also need to detach yourself from wherever it is that you came from your family. Now, I'm not saying cut cords with ancestors that are for you, your greater good, but like emotionally detach from it, right? You could still physically see those people, of course, whoever is healthy, and just because you have family does not mean that they're healthy. Just because someone is blood related does not mean that you have any obligations technically to them. At very least, if you know what the lessons are, because if you got kicked out of the tribe, then there's a good old reason for it. Again, it's part of the natural process of life. it wasn't meant to, maybe you had to learn a big old lesson in this life about who it is that you are. And right now you have to face this inner child that keeps running away from the maturity that you need to, and the power and the confidence that who you are, right? And whatever all has transpired. Pallas Athene in the second house. You're not a child anymore. You are an adult. You can see quite plainly. I see that most of you need to live in the country, right? You need a place to... I also see that exercise would also be something that would be very helpful for... Maybe it's a time when you think, when you're moving, right, towards this fixed energy, so second house. So maybe while you're moving along, running or jogging or walking or spinning or whatever you're doing, some sort of... what's that called? The whirling dervishes or something like this. Grouse medicine, right? Then maybe this could bring you some sort of unwinding, right? Perhaps you go on a trail that's counterclockwise. You walk around the house counterclockwise. You have to unwind something. So that you stop being so afraid. So that you stop being attached to whatever all transpired prior to now. And I see for you, again, the same as Aries. Around when you were 10, things were probably good-ish. And then something happened and you got kicked out of the tribe. The tribe got kicked around. Right? The positioning of everything got kicked around. And you felt like, oh my God, I'm a kid and I gotta be an adult. Right? How do I do that? And maybe some of you, even now as an adult, regardless of your age, still have some sort of thing that's adult-like that you don't know, you don't have a good grasp on how to handle that. You see? But I see that you can. I mean, gosh, you're the wolf. I see wolf medicine would also be very helpful for you while you're working through this. They're very protective, you know. It's where you need to know that you have that protection. You are safe and loved and protected so that you no longer have to run from whatever you've been running from and close that cycle out. Okay? Thank you. We got 2250. Pallas Athene in the third house or in Gemini. Which way are you going? I heard, why are you going that way? Why do you go that way? What draws you that way? What pulls you that way? Why are you magnetically drawn to that? Why are you running? Why do you run away from your own shadow? And I heard, why are you two-minded about the situation so much? And since this is Gemini or the third house, the two-mindedness makes sense. But you can have both of those, right? Light and shadow, masculine, feminine, what have you, but they need to be more equal. Okay, I see that there's more shadow than anything. And you run away from it, right? Your inner teenager actually runs away from it. It's like your teenager doesn't want to deal with something, so it just tries to change your feelings real fast so that you don't have to deal with whatever that shadow is, whatever that darkness is, whatever that, for a lot of you could have to do with, I heard your mother and also sexual partners here. Just a second. Pallas Athene in the third house. You have to get out of your head and more into your body. You have to realize that you can do anything, but there are certain things that you're not supposed to do. The things that aren't very well thought out. Okay? You have to understand how your actions affect other people. Everything that you do. Every little tiny thing that you do. Not just you, but your twins. So you actually have 3 people to be responsible for. And I know that's probably a lot. You know? And trying to have 3 things have equal proportions of light and shadow can be very challenging. That's quite an equation. Right? But you have to know that you can do that, but you have to put a significant amount of effort towards it, and perhaps this may even be something that's like a square in your chart that you have to constantly sort of keep in check, particularly mentally, and how that affects your energy and what you choose in this life. Okay? I see you've worked your way up. This primarily, for most of you, has to do with your sacral chakra, the orange chakra. Okay? Which is where your emotions are, your creativity, your sexuality. Okay? It's a significant chakra. Right? And you can't jump from the sacral chakra to your head. Right? All the way up to this purpley, indigo child world. It doesn't work like that. You got to go all the way through it. Okay? You cannot rush that process. And maybe for some of you, there's some sort of spiritual growth that you're also trying to, attain and, reach this higher enlightenment. But it's like, dude, you live on Earth. Right? This is real. I can touch it. Right? I can touch it. We can touch it. It's real. You can smell it. You can feel it. Be more in your body. Be more in this present moment. Stop trying to rush everything. Okay? Have a little bit more patience with the situation, because think about from night to day, right? You can't rush the sun coming up. You can't rush the sun going to bed and the moon coming up, right? You just can't. So you have to accept that, not only in your mind, but also in your energy, and know that you can. Love you. Thank you. Okay, 28/10. We're going to do Pallas Athene in the 4th house, or in Cancer, or in Cancer. I see the Gemini has a message for you. I also see that you whatever the message, actually specifically what the message is in Gemini for you, is that whatever they're going through, you're 2 steps ahead of that, above that, right? There's some sort of maturity here, particularly for most of you, in the fact of not pretending to be anybody else for somebody else or for something else, right? No more wearing a mask. No more pretending who it is that you are. No more blending into a situation because, of fear of not being accepted, or that you're too weird, or you're too fiery, or you're too this, or you're too that. Maybe for some of you there's something with Sagittarius too, where it's because that's just part of who it is that you are. Right? There's something about your own passion that you're learning about, and understanding how you actually, I just got I'm very animated in this reading. We have the King of Wands here, so it's helpful. It's like a lot of the questions that were brought up in Gemini's reading, which I guess is important for you to watch, are things that you've sort of thought about, right? You're aware of. You're now starting to put into practice. It's actually part of your action, and have a little bit more control about, over your own mind, right? Over your own energy. And again, not pretending to be anybody that you are not. Because you stick out like a sore thumb no matter what you do. Say you were in a crowd of people and you were dressed just like everybody else. You would still emanate this kind of like energy. You know, people pick up on it. I can sense it. It's like people are drawn to you. You're like this shiny, you're like crows to a shiny object, right? It's like bink, like people just do that. And that's something that you have to come to accept and admire in yourself. That's just a part of you, right? And that you are creative, and that you are passionate, and that I heard you are a good partner, you know? And that you know what fairness is. Fairness is something that you're coming to understand. And also the importance and responsibility attached to, again, like Gemini, your actions, right? And understanding that you're now becoming more responsible for your actions. And obviously in some kind of way more animated, which I guess in a sense represents being comfortable in your own body, right? And who it is that you are. Being cool with that. Actually having fun with that. Right? Which enables you to be able to have more fun with other people. Being able to have more fun in general, whether that's through creation or through interactions with other people or your children or whatever, sex. It's just like more comfortable with your own energy and less of a shield. You know what I mean? Because I think for a long time you had this, because Athene has a shield too. You know? A shield and a sword. She's ready, right, to protect. But the King of Wands has neither one of those. You know? He has a stick, but you can get that anywhere. You know? It's nothing, it's natural. It's not something that had to be forged and relied upon by somebody else to make something for you. It's like you realize that you can make things for yourself. That you create your world. Yes, the Creator gave you your life, right, in a sense. But now it is your responsibility to take up, I heard again, that responsibility to be yourself. To be yourself. And specifically for a lot of you, wherever fire is in your chart. I also heard for a lot of you, in addition to that, wherever, because we're talking about Pallas Athene in Scorpio, it could also be your Mars is really being emphasized here. And it's specific to your relationships, your one-on-one partnerships with people. With yourself, who you are, again, being comfortable in that, knowing your own power in that, right? Feeling good and creative in who you are and what you want to make, what you want to forge in this life. And also who you are with your partnerships. And I heard again, not putting on some sort of mask or armor, like to participate in either one of those things. Fucking right, Pallas. I love you. Scorpio too. These two together is right up my alley. Fucking love it. It's so passionate, isn't it? But that's what it feels like. That's what this, it's good. It's really good. Right on. Love you. Thank you. Let's do 3412. Pallas Athene in the 5th house in Scorpio or in Leo. Very airy. Pallas Athene in the 5th house. Hold on. I heard, where's the fire? Where's the fire? I heard, what are you trying to run away from? What are you running away from? And what are you in such a hurry about? You're racing to the red light right here. Right? Why are you racing to the red light? Why do you race to the red light, right? Because we're talking about bigger things here. Scorpio, Pallas Athene, this ultimate truth and clarity, right? Honesty. To the point. Why are you racing? Why do you race to the red light? That's enough, baby. Just a second. It's like when you can't put your mind together, like get it to go in the way that you want it to go, like all geometrically sound, like in these natural pathways, you just run away from it. You'll like jump to the next thing. And you're like, oh, okay, well, this isn't, this in my life, whatever I'm trying to I heard manifest or create, especially bringing ideas like into the physical world. It's like you have a whole bunch of them, you have a whole bunch of ideas, and then for whatever reason, and you put a bunch of, I heard mental activity into something, right? A lot of thinking, a lot of contemplation, but then it doesn't do it, or you have too much of it, and then you just, again, jump to the next thing, but you're just, again, racing to the red light because you have to stop, and then either go back and clean up your mess, or start from square one, but then you do the same thing, and then race to the red light, and then race to the red light. It's like you're not figuring out, you have to figure out the path, right? You have to figure out how to get to the cheese. Don't just keep ramming your head into the wall. Find the cheese. You have to find the cool analogy. You got to find the cheese. Pallas Athene in the 5th house. Because usually, what is that? A rat in a maze, right? These awful scientists. But the point is that usually, maybe the first 1-2 times, it gets a little lost, right? Or it takes a wrong turn and it gets put into a corner, and then, again, racing to the red light. But usually around the 3rd try, well, you get it together, right? And I see that there's a big thing you're learning about communication, particularly within your own mind, and how you communicate your own, how you communicate and organize your own passions, right? Maybe some of you become either too impassionate about too many things, and then you get bored with them and you go to somewhere else. Or you just can't you have to learn how to keep focus. You know what I mean? You need to figure out how to ground yourself. That's what it is. Maybe some of you, there's a lack of earth in your chart or something. Like there's an excess of air, and it makes it too mental. You know what I mean? It makes it too way up here, and it's like you need to come back down to earth. You need to actually get off this energy that's just like, phew, 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 that's kind of overwhelmed or being dictated by your external world. Even your internal world is kind of being dictated by these external things, and you got to figure out how to be like, woof, like plant yourself into the soil. Maybe some of you, that tree meditation where you literally breathe in. When you breathe in, you're pulling from the earth up into your bare feet, and then you breathe out and go into the earth, right? Literally do this outside with your bare feet, okay? Especially when you can't seem to keep focus about something, or again, you just feel like you're hitting your head against a wall, and you're like, why am I doing that? Why am I doing that? Right? You get too many questions about things. You get too much mental activity. I see you need to come on down. Okay? Come on down. It's like, what is that? The Price is Right. You got to come on down so you can maybe answer the right questions and ask the right questions, and then be able to get to the next step so that you can spin that wheel and hopefully win the prize to whatever it is that you are trying to attain. Okay? Not just for yourself and your own mental health, your own well-being, but of course, so that you can help spread that feeling of being safe and loved and protected. Right? You control your own mind. You realize that. You need to realize that. I love Pallas Athene and Scorpio. Beautiful. Hold on. I hope I have time. Let's do 40, 25. Pallas Athene in the 6th house, or in Virgo. Pallas Athene, it's Scorpio in the 6th house, or in Virgo. Let me see here. Pallas Athene in the 6th house of Virgo. Lots of fire. Lots of fire. Lots of small little fires. It's not one big one. It's little ones everywhere. It's like an aftermath, right? The 6th house is the battlefield, right? It's like an aftermath, like the town's burned down, and now there's just these little piles of smoldering, like little piles of fire with these smoldering parts everywhere, and you can't really see anything, and it's kind of, and it's hard for you to breathe, and it's too hot and too smoky, and you gotta, like, you need to breathe, so you need to go, and it's contrary because you need to go up, there needs to be some sort of elevation, okay, so that you can have some sort of perspective on what it is that's going on, and because for whatever reason it is your responsibility. Like, I don't know if you feel like, or at very least in this scenario that I'm seeing, like, it's kind of not your responsibility, but you know that these fires will go out on their own in a way, but you need to kind of take up a sort of like a kind of action to really process all of what's happened, and then you start putting out these little fires on their own, like you start putting them out, right? But you have to find water to put these out. You could use earth to put it out too. Yeah, you could use earth to put it out, but you won't fix it with fire, and you won't fix it with air. I see Gemini has a message for you. 3rd house, Pallas Athene, has a message for you. I see you need to figure out what is enough for you too. Like, there's something that's like, there's still like a burning in your belly. But I see it in this dual kind of message where, in one way, there's a fire in your belly that is just enough, right? It gives you enough energy. You're in control of it. It's not overwhelming. It's not scary, right? It's just warming. It's sort of Vesta-like, okay? But then in another way, I guess in some sort of way you have to sort of not lower your expectation per se. You need to have you need to keep a wide perspective about whatever it is that's going on, and whatever it is that you have seen, and wherever it is that you have came from. But whatever it is that you're solving, and the next step, which I also see Pallas Athene in the 4th house as a message that you have to do something old-fashioned, okay? This has to do with old-fashioned behavior or efforts, actions, right? Maybe some of you need to learn some sort of trade that is natural, that is basic, right? Fundamental sort of skill sets that go back without electricity, right? Where fire was the main source, the biggest source of energy, right? Using that fire in an appropriate way, right? Not burning that whole town down so that it's just completely destructive, but that you understand that when you play with fire, well, it's that you have to respect it, right? And that you don't just have a big blazing bonfire, because, you know, in a sense, that kind of hugeness to it, that kind of massiveness behind it, you have to understand the power and the respect that is needed within the fire realm. Because fire can totally get out of hand. You know, and a lot of people, I heard it also drives away your natural, whatever this fire, this smoke is. Could be Rahu for a lot of you too. How did I just see that? It interferes with your own instincts. Like your instincts will sharpen if you can get a hold of what it is that's going on here, particularly in this fire smoky realm, this fire smoke world. Okay? And I see that you will. I see that a lot of you have already, in a way, you've energetically, at very least, you understand what I'm talking about. Okay? And you've already started to sort of take steps, and you realize that it is slow. Again, excuse me. You have to do something old. You have to do it the old-fashioned way. And you have to have patience with it, a little at a time. Wow. Okay, I'm going to have to split this video. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, Pallas Athene, Scorpio in the 7th house, Pallas Athene in the 7th house, or in Libra. Just a minute. Sorry. They're very quiet cards. Pallas Athene in the 7th house is suggesting that you need to know that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. And that the messages that come to you sometimes, say intuitively or psychically or what have you, are not always what they seem. Sometimes there are many, many layers to it, and it all depends on your perspective and how patient you are to digest the information that comes to you, the clarity, the honesty, the messages that come to you. You have to sit with them for a second, even 3 seconds. You have to learn to do that so that you can become more aware of your own connection to spirit and to Mother Earth, right? Which in essence connects in a triangular sense back into all living things. I heard Saturn in Libra is exalted, right? See, for a lot of you, this may have something to do with Pisces. Gemini seems to have a message for everybody. It's very interesting. I see that the buffalo can help you. That's a medicine that can help you. I see whoever, other people in your lives, right? We're talking about Pallas Athene in the 7th house. This is relationships. The people that you are tied to, the people that you are connected to, right? In some kind of way or another, whether it's a good knot or a bad knot, right? Chain, whatever you want to, however you perceive it. Well, they are where they are, and you have to let them be where they are. If you cut somebody else down out of the tree, right? You cut the noose of somebody else. Well, they're probably going to unconsciously end up right back there at that noose anyway. So you're interfering, and you have to trust the fact that there's something about being able to let the people, especially your one-on-one partnerships, be able to, well, I heard let lion dogs lie, right? And then I heard get along, little doggy. And actually, it's funny, these little, like, country songs, maybe a lot of, I don't know, maybe came from there in some other time, but I also heard that home on the range. Where the deer and the antelope play. You know, so maybe there was a time where it was simpler. You know, maybe you need to, maybe a lot of you, you know, are really affected by the technological world, right? Or you feel all tied up in some sort of spiritual sense to how to connect back to earth. Or again, it's distracting to where other people, you know, maybe it's distracting for some of you to live in the city anymore, right? You need to be more in the country, or you need to be around less people. I also see that it's important for you to have a regular meditation of some sort of spiritual practice that brings you back into earth. You have to. And you have to, again, while that is happening, the messages that come to you, it is not meant to that spiritual practice is not meant to give you all the answers, because you will not ever know them, whether it's about yourself, about God, or about other people. You will never have all those answers. You are not supposed to have all those answers. It would be too much for the human being. We're ready to absorb what it is. We are ready to absorb when we are ready to absorb it. When we are ready to see it, when we are ready to feel it, when we are ready to untie ourselves from the noose that we put ourselves in, the tree that we're in, right? Because that's the difference. It's like somebody's like tied in a tree, like with a noose around their neck, but the earth is right there, right? They're hanging because they don't feel grounded, but like the ground's right there. You see what I'm saying? They actually left the ground to be able to go up to this space. It's unnecessary, this process. That difficulty about it, okay? And I see that this spiritual practice and the letting go of this kind of intertwining with other people and the responsibility attached to it and interconnectivity. I also see for a lot of you, it could be very beneficial for you to be alone right now. Like, say you're single, or even if you're involved with other people, family, you have family or children, whatever. You need to take time by yourself. You have to. You absolutely 1000% must. If you don't, you become ungrounded and you get yourself all tangled up about things that don't even matter, and you misinterpret the messages that are actually being given to you by God or your spirits or nature or whatever you connect to. Dreams. You know, because it all depends on the perspective. And to truly understand that, again, you have to be connected to spirit, yes, all the way up here, right? But that's why the magician does this. You have to be also absolutely connected all the way down to the earth. You have to be touching both of those things and know that you got a good grasp on it. And even if you let go, that they are always right there within your grasp. Deep. I love this energy. It's so cool. Okay. Pallas Athene in the 8th house. Pallas Athene, Scorpio in the 8th house. Pallas Athene. Wow. How do you feel about sex? How do you feel about creation? How do you feel about your father? How do you feel about Capricorn? Again, father. How do you feel about where you came from? Energetically, this is what I'm asking. When I ask these questions, and feel free to rewind and pause in between. I hope I didn't go too fast. What happens in your body when I ask those questions? Where does it happen? How does it feel? Okay? See, most of you have had sexual trauma. Join the club. No diss. You're not alone. I see for a lot of you, your sacral chakra is, you've been doing a lot of work on it. I see that a lot of you, but it's slow. It's slow. Okay? Pallas Athene in Scorpio, Pallas Athene in the 8th house. It's slow. And I see that for a lot of you, you're starting at square one with something. You're also recognizing your own power in something. You're also recognizing the difference and the transition between winter. You're going through a transition between winter and spring. But then I also see spring. Like, what does it mean to go, for you, to go from winter when it changes into spring? And also, how do you feel about the time of year between spring summer, right? Maybe the solstice then. Until from solstice to solstice, how do you feel? From winter to spring, how do you feel in that time of year? How does it affect you? Energetically, sexually, creatively, how does it affect you? When are you productive then? When are you unproductive then? Do you feel good and confident during those times? When don't you? I see again, how do you feel about where you came from? How do you feel about sex? How do you feel about letting go? How do you feel about the seasons changing? See, for a lot of you, Capricorn, Saturn, very strong. I also see Pallas Athene in the 1st house or in Aries has a message for you. I see that you don't have to keep climbing that mountain if you don't want to. Okay? Just because you're a mountaineer does not mean that you have to continuously go find the most challenging, difficult, I heard all-encompassing endeavor to prove yourself to. It doesn't have to be difficult. If you know who you are, if you know what you want, if you know that you are a creation of the Creator. And even, say, if we break it down just into your parents and like where you came from and whatever the whole situation is with that, you are now here. You were created, and that in itself is miraculous, right? As far as I've read, a woman technically only is ovulating for like 7 minutes. Like, there's like a super tiny time frame to be able to actually have this happen, and like the whole process and the science of it is like absolutely mind-boggling, right? And because if you think of the fact that humans aren't even really in tune with their own selves energetically or emotionally or bodily speaking, like, we're not like the animals, right? That's why we have diseases and all that, and most animals don't, because they mate only when they're supposed to mate. But the point of the story is that however you were created and whomever created you, and wherever you all came from, and whatever mountains you've had to ascend and descend, well, you're here now, and that is absolutely miraculous. And view life in that way, right? If you want to climb the mountain, if you need to climb this mountain, well, then you know that you're a mountaineer, and you can fucking do that. But it doesn't mean that you have to, and it doesn't mean that it's always winter. It doesn't mean, like, again, like, winter turns into spring. It's just a natural part of the process. And it happens every year. So it also shows me every year you have this brand new, wonderful opportunity to be able to start something really creative, right? Really passionate. Like, you could even maybe achieve some sort of great gift, an expression of some sort of gift, or like a creative endeavor. You could do it in a yearly sense that's actually, it may be a slow process, right? But like 1 year at a time, I see you have these big gaps of like year sort of, I heard of advancements, right? If you believe that you can. If you know when to climb the mountain and when it's not worth your time to, maybe you need to come on down. You know what I mean? Maybe you need to get out of the winter and get into the spring. And I saw an actual little like watery spring, and it was summertime, and it was beautiful, and you stuck your toes in. You know what I mean? Cool energy. I love it. I love it. Okay. Hold on. Pallas Athene in the 9th house, or in Sagittarius. I see you'll get out of that water. I see you'll get where you're going. I see the seasons changing in a really positive way. I see the weather changing. I see things becoming warmer. I see things becoming drier. I see things moving more easily. Okay? And I see that you'll get there a whole heck of a lot faster if you start putting in a little bit of effort. And for those of you who have children, it's teaching them about what hard work really is. Like maybe some sort of physical labor, although I know kids don't like that kind of stuff. And it's not about programming them, but it's about, you know, it could even just be other people's children, right? Like realizing that everyone needs to put in their part to be able to get to this place that's solid ground. For the seasons to change, for the temperature to change, for the things to move again, flow freely. A little bit more naturally. And understanding what it is that we're standing within and how beautiful it is that what is there, and you know what to do with it. You know why it's there. You know what it is. You know how to use it. Right? You're not expecting anybody else to do it for you. You're understanding that you know that faith is absolutely necessary to get to this place. Also being able to express when it is that you need help. If there's a hole in the boat, well, that's only your mind that makes it. Okay? It's not real. It's a perception. I want you to believe what it is that you see right in front of you. You need to do that. You need to pick up your head. Because also for those of you who have children, that's also you picking up your head and looking around and putting in that hard work and being able to ask other people for help is expressive of a beautiful example, not only for your children, but for other human beings, to what you want in the world. Right? The healing that you are seeking for yourself and for all, right? And understanding that everything can truly work together if we stop covering everything up with things that we just want it to be. And being impatient in the process, right? Of course it's not going to just happen because the human wants it to. I mean, it can start something like that. We can begin something, but it takes a while to get from point A to point B. Right? To be able to ground the emotions in the mind, to have them in a settled place so that you, again, have faith that it will be on solid ground, that there's not a snake in the grass. And even if there is, it won't attack you because you're so in tune with your own self and in nature overall that it won't attack you because you know it will know that you're not a threat because you're not afraid. Right? Boom, bam, boom. This energy is so intense. I love it. But intense in an empowering way. You know what I mean? I see that Scorpio has a message for you. Scorpio has a very strong message for you. So does Pallas Athene in the 8th house, Pallas Athene in the 6th house. They both have messages for you. went quiet, so that's the end. Hold on. Pallas Athene in the 10th house, or in Capricorn. Well, I see your values are changing. Your values, for some of you, need to change. But most of you, they're changing at this point. You're starting to realize what's worth it to you. What money is. What stability is. Not only within the physical world, but also how what we possess in life and what we deem valuable is directly reflective of our own internal vibration, and understanding that change is not always shiny and clean and polished and all of that. Sometimes it's very messy, sometimes it's super raw, right? But if you put in that effort, you do the digging to be in the soil, right? And Pallas Athene in Scorpio, right? Or in the 10th house here, Capricorn energy. And I do see you have Scorpio here strong, but it's like you do that digging, right? You take the time to be able to be in tune of something of what's underneath it all, and then you do the digging, and then you find this treasure, right? And the treasure, however, blistered your hands are and dirty you got, and how raw it is what it is that you find, you know how precious it is, and you know that you can reveal what is inside of that, all that hard shelled thing that you hold, okay? And then you can shine to the world, not because you're trying to prove something or because you want to deem even like I'm valuable, but like you just know it. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to show off for anybody or have all the money and the power and the fancy diamonds and all this stuff. It's like, whatever. It's just, you strip off all the jewelry, you strip off all the family, you strip off all the accolades and the admiration and the love from other people and all this. It's like all the clothes. It's like, who are you? Right? And when you love yourself in that space and you absolutely know it, and it's not about an external thing, it's absolutely only and purely, at least initially, internal. That is what you need to know. I also see for a lot of you, if you wear gemstones, if you mess around with gemstones, you should be really aware of what that means in relation to your chart, because you can actually interfere with karmic situations if you don't understand what all the aspects are. It's a lot. I mean, of course, we have intuition attached to that, but you don't know where that came from, right? Especially like stones, say that you don't just find, you come across, but like you buy them from wherever on the internet or something. It's like you don't know whether they're just stripping the earth of that, like, because truly wherever it is that you walk in life, regardless, you don't even have to dig in the soil to be able to find whatever this is. It's already there, right? It already exists. And in truth, there's something about the underworld. Yes, you have to do digging, but it's not about where, I guess you want to be careful where you dig. You know what I mean? And to know that certain things don't need to be dug up. You know what I mean? Some things are already dug up and been buried. So don't be re-digging up things that are already polished and done. Okay? They're already you've already determined the value of them. Don't backtrack on that and try to pick it apart and get it all dirty again, so you got to redo the lesson. Okay? Wow, messages. I love it. Hold on. Pallas Athene in the 11th house. or an Aquarius. You're never going to get it perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Ever. Can you get close? Yeah. Especially, can we get close? Yes. With practice, with correct discernment, with correct action. Yes, we can get pretty close. But it takes practice, right? It takes practice. And what is all perfection anyway? What is it? Do you believe perfection can exist? If so, you have to understand that your opinion of that, your perception of that, your expression of that is yours and yours alone. Because it's still based in the human, right? Because there is perfection, say, in nature, right? It works on its own. It doesn't need anything to come and tell it what to do. It knows what to do. The human, on the other hand, we have some significant lessons, and I guess this is why we have the mind and the soul in this vessel this time. Okay? I see there is no perfect man. Okay? Leave it be. Good girl, Zumi. I heard try again. You know what I mean? Like, you don't like the way that something is? Well, realize that that's just your perception of what you think is good or bad. Now, of course, are there some natural things, say, within natural and spiritual law that are not appropriate? Yes, of course. The things that hurt people, literally, physically, right? Opinions, do feelings get hurt? Yeah, that's the ego. Does the mind get upset? Yeah, that's the ego. You know, does the heart get upset? Yeah, that's the ego. Do we have anxiety? Yeah, that's the ego. But physically, natural law, in a natural law sense, all it is do no harm. If you do no harm, you are doing the right situation, right? You're making the right action. So try to live your life that way. And I heard try not to, because Aquarius, once you decide something, your own form of perfection, well, however unique you are, you still sort of go with the mainstream in whatever humanity is going through. Whether that is actual, factual sorts of things, or maybe even subconsciously you might get tricked into falling for propaganda, right? Into, like, say, even this whole patriarchy, matriarchy thing. It's still an oligarchy. We're still under an arch. There's no difference, right? Don't fall into any of the manipulated traps of massive media to what you think a man is, like, or a woman is supposed to be. Now, of course, there are some natural things attached to that. But what I'm saying is, like, well, God made you and everyone exactly the way that they're supposed to be able to learn the lesson that they need to learn as a soul in this body, right? Let's say in ways of evolutionary astrology. And you can try to make yourself and the world and, say, other people into whatever it is that you want, but you have to ask yourself why you do that. Why do you do that? I heard, why are you trying to convince people of... Why do you try to convince people to, say, open their eyes to something when you know that they're not ready to open them? Because you can't, you do this to somebody, just like force them to see something. If they're not ready to see it, whether that's whatever the case may be, well, then they're not going to be able to see it. Doesn't matter how wide you peel those peppers open. You know what I'm saying? I also see for most of you, there could also be something about the father here. And I see that Pallas Athene in the second house or in Taurus has a message for you. Hold on. Pallas Athene in the 12th house or in Pisces. I see Pallas Athene in the second house or in Taurus has a message for you. I see Pallas Athene in the 9th house also has a message for you. You need to stop running. For some of you. For most of you, you realize why you run, right? In some way or another. And you realize you need to, because Pallas Athene is telling you things, right? She's telling you the truth. What she's saying is that you have to be aware of what your inner child is afraid of. Your inner child has to be reassured that it is not going to have to go through a hard winter all by itself, right? Whatever winter may mean to you. I see for all of you, it's your first boyfriend, meaning a male that was a friend. For some of you, it's literally your first boyfriend, or like, but I sense it more like when you're a kid and you like had a crush on somebody, right? Or it's like the first person you ever kissed when you were like a kid, or even if they just gave you a smooch on the cheek, it's like somebody like that, like who was the first, something like this, like where you learned about love. Maybe some of you where you learned about a boy and a girl, right? That kind of, that you finally figured out, like, okay, because when children are just children, they just see themselves as a child, like I'm just a human. And then eventually we get to an age where we start to realize, like, oh, you're a boy and you're a girl, right? And there's differences there, not only the way that we play and the way that we communicate, but also like physically, right? Our bodies change and things of this nature. And I see again that she's also saying that the whether you're a tomboy or you know, however it is that you grew up and wherever it is that you've walked, right? Every step that you've taken since you started walking. Well, I see for a lot of you, if you Capricorn has something to do with this. I also see Pallas Athene in the 8th house has a message. Its inner child is running right towards it. I also see for a lot of you, you have put well, you can't run anymore. You can't run anymore. You're not allowed to like run away like a little kid about something. You have to grow up, right? You have to, because if you try to run away, what you actually run into is the battlefield. You run into the mountain in the middle of in winter, right? Without your snow boots on or your hat or your mittens, right? You just happen to run out of the house scared shitless for some reason and just your pajamas, and it's snowing and you don't know where you are and it's nighttime and it's scary. If you run, that's where you run, is into this place that like is frozen and is not healthy for your inner self or where it is that you want to go in this life, right? So you have to take a good hard look at, again, where it is, what you're afraid of, specifically your inner child. What the heck are they afraid of? And I see for most of you, the inner child has gotten off the merry-go-round, finally realizes that it needs to grow up, but it's still afraid, okay? And that this transition and this process, whatever it is a slow process. There's a lot of tests, there's a lot of quizzes, there's a lot of footwork that needs to be done. And I see that you can do it, but you want to make sure that you got your boots on and you got your mittens and your hat and you packed some snacks. You know what I mean? And you had some clear communication to what it is that's going on with you and where it is and what it is that you're going through. And realizing that you need time alone to be able to figure out what all of this is so that you can manifest what it is that you want in this life and stop staying in this winter world. Right? Because you can't halt the season. It's kind of what it is. It's like some of you just want summer to last forever. Summer, summer forever. And then others of you are like, it's winter always. It's like, or maybe there's a polarity of this, right? Again, I see it goes back to Pallas Athene in the 8th house. Wow. Fascinating. It's cool too. The bottom, Pisces or whoever went all the way through. Hi. Thanks for still being here. It's fascinating too. The bottom of the deck, the cards that I made ended up with this, there's only one way, right? And it goes, and this is the bottom of this deck, and the bottom of the other tarot is the Hermit, which are in Virgo season, which is when Pallas Athene will be in Scorpio. And it really, it's just everyone taking a good old gander if they want to, right? To like where they're going. And because really the only way to go is within, to be able to participate with the world and have things work out in a way that is conducive not only for all the human beings and the psyche of that and the interaction of that, but also the way the human interacts with nature, with God, right? With each other, with money, with their friends, with their lovers, with where they live, their body, their home, literally and metaphorically, and with, again, God, right? We actually give ourselves the time to be within our own bodies enough to be able to process things accordingly to whatever happens, so that we stop dragging and clasping to them, to the ends of the earth. Because my perspective on it is, if you don't learn the hard lessons this time, because this card came out for everyone, it's the very first card, my little student card. If we don't learn the lesson and realize that life is a constant learning process and we are always the student, right? We are always the teacher, yes, by example, but we're always the student. And that is such a beautiful place to be, right? And I love this Pallas Athene and Scorpio. It's so, it's a little bit like, like here's a sword, I'm cutting all the but let's get down to it, right? Get down to the matter. Get down to whatever the past was so we can balance it out and be happier with ourselves and with, again, others. With where we live and our family and our own emotional well-being. Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me. No nukes. I don't even know if there is nuclear weapons. I think it might be a trick. We got bombs, but that's another story. Fascinating. I had all kinds of paperwork to do today, but I'm going to do it tomorrow on Mercury Day. That'll be good. It's more paperwork friendly. Do my Excel spreadsheets. Today, seemingly, I knew I needed to do this reading, and I was going to try to start like a Patreon page, see how that all goes, but I don't know. I feel that this information should be free, and if you find it, and if you listen to it, and if you want to learn from it, well then that helps the whole, and yeah, we need money to survive at this point in time, but like, it's more about the exchange of knowledge, right? The exchange of ourselves in a very Pallas Athene way, like brave, because she came out of the head, so it's a lot about thought, and how we think about life and how we think about ourselves, and realizing the power of our mind, and that no one is in control of that besides ourselves, which is where everything all starts, right? It comes right from God, or whatever it is that you're connecting to. And I sense that Pallas Athene in Scorpio is super brave. Super brave. She wants to get rid of all the shit, you know what I mean? She wants to get down to the dirty of it. Get down, right, just like Aries or Pallas Athene in the first house, this card. Just cleaning it up, right? Wolf that would never live there, right? Wants to run free. Awesome. Alright, well, I love you all so much. I hope you like this reading. These are fun and very enlightening. Please be good to yourself. Again, check out Anastasia. I'll leave a link to her page below. And she works a lot with the goddesses, which I like. And yeah, peace.